The Kansas City Chiefs have now moved to 5-1 on the season with, count 'em, 16 in a row victories over the Denver Broncos. But with that, Chiefs Kingdom is still not at ease because there are still those wide receiver woes. We'll discuss that, and I will give you my initial takeaways over that Thursday night victory against the Denver Broncos. Now with that, let's cut the chit chat and let's have some fun. Man, what a time. 16 in a row over the Denver Broncos. I know it wasn't pretty. Honestly, it was ugly. But at the end of the day, 16 in a row. If you have been a part of the Kansas City Chiefs fan base for basically your whole life, this isn't how it always used to be. In the early 2000s and mid 2000s, the Denver Broncos had our number. And now it's good to see the tables turn, and hopefully we can keep going. And we face the Denver Broncos in 2 weeks, so might as well add the 17 in a row and just have some fun with it. And also, I want to thank everyone who joined the live stream. It was a good time. It was a fun time. It was great to have everyone in on Thursday night, and we will be doing it again Sunday as we go take on the LA Chargers. But let's get into this game a little more. But before we focus on this offense, let's give credit to where it is due, and it's rightfully so, and it is this defense. They played phenomenal. They probably played the best game they have played this season, and you can see them, that transitioning just keeps going up, and it's only going to get better because Charles Omenihu is off suspension, and that brings another lethal threat in the pass rushing department. And you also got the rumors out there now that Frank Clark may be added back to this defense. I will discuss that more in depth tomorrow and how I feel about that moving forward. But the performance the defense displayed on Thursday night was perfection. And honestly, and 2 points too, because a lot of people will focus and be like, oh, it's the Denver Broncos, yada, yada, yada. They look terrible. But the Denver Broncos offense has been moving the ball this year. Russell Wilson has been playing very efficient football, and you can never discredit a division rival. They can have the worst record, and they can upset you any given Sunday because they're rivals. They know you better than anyone else. So the fact the Kansas City Chiefs defense was on full display was a thing of beauty. And talking about how Russell Wilson was usually efficient, not in this game he wasn't. He had only 95 passing yards. That is something you just don't hear. Maybe you hear about it in a half, but for a full game, that is crazy. And the Broncos, they did pick up good yardage, and then the Kansas City Chiefs, they played stout. Every time it seemed like the Denver Broncos were getting into enemy territory, they did what I was hoping and praised that they needed to do, and it was get turnovers. And they had 3 on the day with a Justin Reed deflection interception, beautiful deflection by Willie Gay. Nick Bolton with one of the most athletic interceptions for a big linebacker that you will see. And then Trent McDuffie seals it up with a fumble. It was kind of McLaughlin's fumble because he brought the ball down in the bounce on his knee, but we're crediting McDuffie because he had the initial hit. And I think McDuffie now, even though he hasn't got interceptions, he's caused 3 fumbles on the year. This dude, I keep mentioning it, for his stature, his size, not the biggest cornerback, he plays physical. And we talk about how physical and aggressive this whole team is. I think this is the most aggressive defense I have seen in my lifespan. I haven't really focused on the Chiefs in the 90s, but growing up in the 2000s, we haven't seen a defense like this in a while. And it is so fun to see. We usually see people being the aggressor against us, but now the Chiefs are setting that tone. And one thing that stands out, which nobody focused on at all, was L'Jarius Sneed. He wasn't targeted at all in this game. He is literally creating an island over there. And you could tell Russell Wilson and the Denver Broncos focused on that film against Justin Jefferson and L'Jarius Sneed, and they said, we're not touching it. We don't want to do it. And they tried to get the ball in any other scenario, and it just was not happening. They played great across the board. And then speaking on it, Stone Cold Chris Jones, he had another sack. Make it 8 consecutive games. The dude is worth the money. And if he keeps continuing on this streak, as it looks like he will be, the Kansas City Chiefs need to sign him to an extension, need to bolster that line and secure him for the future. I don't care about age anymore. Honestly, I mentioned in the past, the older the pass rushers get, it seems like they get better. We've seen it across the league. And Chris Jones is establishing that as well too. And it's fun to watch this defense move around. And as I mentioned, now you get Charles Omenihu back. We get to see what he's all about. He left us with a little taste in the preseason on his last game against the Cleveland Browns when I think he had 2-3 sacks. Boy, if you thought this defense was scary, just wait. It's going to get a lot more fun. They're making the case that they are the best defense in the NFL, and I don't think it's a far stretch to say that they aren't. Now, let's transition. We talked about the highs, and we'll talk about the lows, or what Chiefs Kingdom believes is the lows, and it's because of what's been displayed. Let's get into this offense a little bit, and honestly, I don't know how to describe it, and you heard that pause, and it was loud for silence, but the offense and play calling, I don't know what was going on. And you would love to say that's not typical Kansas City Chiefs, but it kind of is. Coach Reid calls some of the most bizarre plays in the weirdest scenarios, and if this was a competitive team they were going against, that would have bit them in the ass. And I like to go off what Nick Wright said because you just see it during Thursday Night Football, and it literally seemed like practice. And I find it comedy that when you go for a fake field goal and turn it into a quarterback sneak with Blake Bell or Noah Gray running up the middle, but you don't trust your quarterback to do that because he dislocated a knee, it's like, what are we doing? And then also, I would have felt more secure if you would have just ran the damn ball and gave it to Isaiah Pacheco. There were 3 instances that come up top of my head where it was 3rd and short, and it was prime Isaiah Pacheco time, and it was just some cute shit that we're used to from the Kansas City Chiefs, and they didn't convert at all. They left a total of at least 6 points when they were in field goal range on the board, and it was just like head scratching to say the least. And since we're going to talk about 6 points, the thing that comes to my head, and I want to give a huge credit, huge MVP shout out to Harrison Butker. He is playing out of his mind as well. Who would have thought? Last year, we were talking about defensive woes, special teams woes. Both of these are costing us the game. The offense is what's pushing us forward. We're in a complete 360 right now because the defense is playing out of their mind, and Harrison Butker is drilling every kick. That 60-yard kick was phenomenal. I doubted him. I should have never have done that. I have my concerns from last year, but he's trying to erase every Chiefs Kingdom fan's memories of last year and letting him know he's healthy and he is the best kicker in the NFL. But let's go back to this offense because we can't just disarray from it and avoid it because it is what it is. But also, with as bad as the offense was, which I don't want to say they're bad, I think the play calling really affected them. Because if you look at the box score, the stat sheets, they moved the ball on the Denver Broncos. They just didn't finish drives. Well, every time when they were in the red zone, it was like, we forgot how to play football. We don't know what to do. If they finish those drives in at least 3 points or 7 points, this is a different game and none of us are worried. But again, I think play calling should be highlighted more than how bad the offense played because Mahomes and gang was moving the ball, and we're going to get to the wide receiving core here shortly because to me, I think we're starting to find everyone's role. And so we'll discuss that. But you can't have good plays or good production if the play calling isn't there. And I know that's been a lot of Chiefs Kingdom's concern is, are we missing Eric Bieniemy? Is Nagy calling the plays? What's going on? And I wish I had an answer for y'all. And I know y'all wish you had the answer as well. And I think the easiest thing to say is Coach Reid is calling the plays. I don't think anything looks different than years past. We've seen the Kansas City Chiefs struggle in short yardage situations, even with Coach EB as the offensive coordinator. I don't think this has anything to do with Nagy. I just think this has to do with the offensive genius himself. And sometimes it gets a little too rich for his own good. We've seen this. It's nothing new. It's just becoming more consistent, which can be worrisome. Now, if you want to talk about personalities as offensive coordinators, leadership skills that may be missed, that could be so. But as for the play calling department, I'm going to solely put that on Coach Reed. And it just seems so easy to fix. Definitely in short yardage. And what was disappointing, I remember a couple weeks ago, I was like, okay, he learned his lesson because he did give it to Isaiah Pacheco in short yardage. And guess what? He was picking it up. And then now it seems like we're taking a step back because he avoided Isaiah Pacheco at all costs on 3rd and shorts. And he's like, let's call reverses. Let's throw a pass to a running back, to a wide receiver that's going to throw it to a running back and almost end up in complete disaster. Let's call a fake field goal. He did everything out of the playbook besides give it to Isaiah Pacheco, which was the go-ahead. And it didn't make no damn sense whatsoever. So hopefully, this is what Nick Wright said it was. He wanted to try some cute stuff and see if it would work like practice. Because next week, a lot of people are going to say is the hardest game the Kansas City Chiefs played because it's division rivals against the Chargers, and they may be the most complete team the Chiefs have played outside the Lions or Jaguars. I think those were two formidable opponents as well, but people are discrediting that because it's the Chiefs. People will discredit anything the Kansas City Chiefs do. But zoning in on this offense as well, they move the ball like I mentioned. They just couldn't put points up. But let's talk about the topic of conversation, and it is these wide receivers. And honestly, I think the answer is really there. It is Rashee Rice. He is wide receiver number 1. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And he surprised me even more. And I think it comes in and week out. He just looks better and better. But one thing that surprised me, and I think one thing that was talked down on, was his speed. But man, in the slot, when he caught some of those footballs, that boy was moving. And I'm like, okay, he is faster than what I thought. And he is looking like a legit threat in this league. And I think he is catching the eyes of the coaches because he had the 3rd most snaps on the team. Rightfully so, but he should have the 1st most because ahead of him was Marquez Valdes-Scantling, which is frustrating, which I don't know why he's getting the most snaps. Not saying I'm not discrediting him as much as Chiefs Kingdom, but if you put him in a good role to where he can do a few good plays, that's good. But when he's out there for 40 plays, it don't make sense. It shouldn't happen. Sky Moore had 37 snaps as well. He actually had a quietly good, productive game in my eyes. Yes, it was only a couple catches, but those couple of catches I think were very sound and really good. And I'm going to say that's moving up the needle as well. And also, he wasn't out there and being more ineffective than he normally is. So I think that's a thumbs up in that department. And then when you focus on Rashee Rice, he had 35 snaps. That's brilliant. He needs to be in the MVS category. He needs to be getting the most snaps in that wide receiver room. And then we will know who is legit. Literally, if you're giving him those snaps and the most snaps, and you see every time, Mahomes is starting to drift and find a new guy. And that new guy is Rashee Rice. And that's been also caused a concern is for most Chiefs Kingdom is Mahomes just locks in on Kelsey. And then after that, it's like he don't know what to do. And yes, he's most comfortable with them. Until he builds that relationship with these receivers, it's going to expand. But right now, it takes time, patience. It will all work its way. But I do see that he is looking for Rashee Rice. And if that's the case, get him on the field. I think Rashee Rice is someone he is trusting. And then also Chiefs Kingdom, we were lied to. It is what it is. And maybe we weren't lied to initially, but we are lied to now. And I remember in this offseason, as all of you did as well, is that Kadarius Toney was supposed to be wide receiver number 1 for the Kansas City Chiefs going into this game. Well, based off the snap count and based off the play calls that he had and the catches he had, those weren't wide receiver number 1 type of calls. That was a gadget player type of role. And I think the Kansas City Chiefs switched their mindset on how they viewed Kadarius Toney, which is nothing wrong because Kadarius Toney can be very effective in this league. Wide receiver number 1, I think that was a high ceiling. But can he have a role and excel to a higher level of a McCole Hardman? I believe so. I really do. And I think what we saw against the Broncos is his new role, where it's trick plays, where it's reverses, where it's those nice short underneath throws and you make a play. That looks like that's what Kadarius Toney's role is, and that's where he will excel. Kind of same with Sky Moore too. He got the short underneath stuff. Besides one bizarre long throw that I didn't know Mahomes would ever target, and he did, which was a pick until it wasn't a pick because it was pass interference. But even at that, Sky Moore was not making that play, and that's just not a target I want to see out there again. But those two guys look like your short underneath guys. That's what I got from this game. And if that's the case, I'm good with that moving forward. And then you focus on Rashee Rice as wide receiver number 1. And then we got unfortunate news with Justin Watson because he did get injured in this game with the elbow dislocation. Now, that will keep him out a few weeks. And honestly, this will be like bitter and not a good joke to make, but if he would have caught the ball, injury may have never happened. But this is neither here nor there. I do wish him a speedy recovery because he has been an asset for this team. But now, all eyes are going to be zoned in on Justin Ross. And specifically, I don't even think they're going to be zoned in on Justin Ross. More or less, they're going to be zoned in on Coach Reid again. With Justin Watson being out an extended period of time, hey, that means next man up. That means someone's got to take those snaps. That means the ball's got to be moved around. That means Justin Ross should see the field, at least from a common mind we would all think. So I would think moving forward, Justin Ross is going to get more production, get more snaps. It won't be anything astronomical, guys. He's not going to get 100 yards against the Chargers. Let's simmer it down. But I do think he'll be on the field more, and I think he can be more productive. When I mean that, a few catches, maybe 30 yards. Let's ease him into the role. I really think a lot of people fell in love with the player because of the talent, but you got to look at the history as it is too. And he hasn't played football since 2019, 2020. So this was going to be a long process, no matter what team he was with. But it will ramp up here now with injuries. Specifically, you had Richie James earlier. Now you have Justin Watson. If he doesn't get the ball now, Coach Reid's doing something. So it's going to be interesting to see moving forward. But trust the process. Trust in these guys, and everything will look good. At the end of the day, with the concerns and worries we have, we're 5-1, baby. We're going against the Chargers, and the Chargers got a good matchup on Monday Night Football against the Cowboys. And if they lose that one, and if we can beat them, we got a strong division lead. So for the first time, and I think ever, I'm going to be a Cowboys fan on Monday Night Football, and then we're going to have a good division test. With that, Chiefs Kingdom, I'm signing off. You let me know how you feel with your initial takeaways as the Kansas City Chiefs are now 5-1. With that, y'all take care. Peace.